Matt Bernie, you're taking a look at an all-stakes pick 4 sequence at Laurel Park on Federico Tessio Saturday. Races 8 through 11, 50-cent base bet. You can play this bet as well as all the other wagers available at Laurel on Saturday with a DRF Bets account. Head on over to bets.drf.com. You can get all the latest as far as deals are concerned. This sequence here, I think it's a really fascinating one, most notably because the Tessio is very likely to produce at least one, if not more, starters for the Preakness here in a few weeks at Pimlico Racecourse. So I think that in and of itself makes this sequence interesting, but there is one horse that seems like he is a standout in that race, so I would strongly encourage you to use DRF Ticketmaker when playing this sequence because you can go through and emphasize your opinions accordingly, and in a sequence like this, if you agree that there is a standout, and it's probably going to be a lone A, then you can spread with some of those other races. You can add Bs, you can add Cs, and again, try to make a little bit more for what your money goes in for. So we'll kick things off with the 8th race, the $100,000 Dahlia, a mile on the grass. For what it's worth, the turf races that are in this sequence, I'm not even going to acknowledge the main track onlys, but there are a number of them should the races come off the grass. 1, 4, 6, 9, and 11. Again, I want to spread a little bit here because I'm going to get super narrow there in the Tessio. I'll quickly go through the one Viva Vegas. From a number standpoint, she makes all the sense in the world, but she's not a prolific winner. She's 3 of 22 lifetime and 7 other times second or third, so she's a little bit of a nibbler. There's a bigger part to me anyway, that at 3 to 1, look, I think you have to use her. But the 118 time form US rating and the 90 buyer that she earned in the Hillsborough most recently, there's a part of me that wonders if those figs, particularly the time form rating, are a little bit on the inflated side, that maybe that race is not nearly as fast as it looks, and if it's not as fast as it looks, she doesn't necessarily have a tremendous edge on the rest of this field, so therefore I want to use some other runners in here. The 4, Mrs. Ramona G. I understand that maybe it looks like she's too slow on paper, perhaps she's better going shorter than longer, but at the same time, I really like the effort 2 starts back. I think a replica of that puts her right there. She's paired up by her tops of 85, which if you've listened to any of the analysis I've given over the past handful of years, I really believe in the pairing up of career tops, that could sort of be a prelude to a forward move to a new top here shortly. So I think she could take a step forward, and I love that she goes out for Jeremiah Englehart, one of the best trainers in the game. A couple other runners that you have to consider. The obvious horse is La Moneda. The number 6 horse goes out for Tom Morley. She has the figs. She has the class. I know that she didn't get the job done in that most recent start. That was her first time going up against stakes company that is not New York breds, but she ran quite well that day. And Capla Temptress, I think, is a nice filly. So I think she's a major player in here. I'd expect her to be shorter than the 2 to 1 morning line she sports right now, but she's another one that I kind of feel like you have to use if you're playing the sequence. And the other 2 horses to consider, the 9 Secret Message and the 11 Super Striking. Let's start with Secret Message. Goes out for Graham Motion. I think there's a scenario where you look at her and you say, that Kiwi 2 Cup, there was no pace that day. There was no chance for her to ever come running from the back, and she faced some big horses in there, most notably Rushing Fall. 2 starts back in the Sands Point. I thought she was in a really good position, and I know she didn't get the job done, but I think she was compromised by the wide trip. She was very wide throughout, and I think that could have ultimately cost her, as opposed to what we saw from California Gold Rush. You go to the Pucker up 3 starts back. To me, that effort is indicative of what you could be looking at here. Now, from a numbers standpoint, a little bit light on time form, but again, she was a 3-year-old last year. If you think she takes a step forward here as a 4-year-old in her first start, I think she got every right to be competitive in here. She's 6 to 1 in the morning line, and the 11 Super Striking is just a horse that I've liked for a long time. I know she's been a little bit of a disappointment. She hasn't seemed to really cut the mustard as far as facing better company is concerned. But at 15 to 1 in the morning line, I want to have at least a little bit of her involved here. We move on to the 9th race, the second leg of this sequence. It is the Weber City Miss, a mile on the 16th on the main track. It is 2 turns. It's going to be a very, very short run into that first turn. There's one horse that's going to take the lion's share of the money, and she'd probably be a lone A for me if I'm playing with Ticketmaker, and that's Las Setas. She goes out for Catherine Voss. Back-to-back winner, 3 straight victories, but the 2 most recent ones over fast going. They've both been smashing wins, 1 by 5, 1 by 5.5. The buyers are a little bit on the lighter side. The time form ratings are a little bit kinder. She's 7 to 5 on the line. I expect her to be even shorter than that. You got to go 2 turns for the first time, so there's no guarantee there, but boy, she just looks like she could be the goods. If you want a sort of interesting alternative, how about the 3 Trapped in My Mind? A maiden through 3 lifetime starts, but I really enjoyed that first start off of the bench. Had a little bit of pace to run at. That was at 6 furlongs at Oaklawn. She came with a good bid, nearly got up in time, stretching out in distance. I don't particularly love the trap shots as the distances get longer, but a mile on a 16th at this sort of configuration where it's just a quick rip around that first turn, if she's ever going to get it, this would be the instance. And she's 12-1 on the morning line. I would use her probably as a C because I think Las Cetas is the most likely winner. But trapped in my mind, maybe that's one that you want to consider using as well. The 10th race, it is the Federico Tessio. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this race. You can go over and find the stakes preview on the YouTube channel for the racing form or on video.drf.com. Simply put, Always Mining. I think he's the best horse. I think he is the controlling speed in here, and I think he puts on a show. I think he gets through this and goes on to the Preakness here in about 4 weeks' time. He's 1-5 on the line. I expect him to be shorter than that. Lone A, I'm not using any backups. And we move on to the payoff leg of this sequence. It is the last race of the day, the 11th race. It's a mile on grass. It's the Henry S. Clark. Again, a situation where I'd like to spread a little bit deeper, include some horses that maybe initially I wasn't thinking about. So 1, 3, 4, 5, 8, and 10 would be the ones that I'd be looking at. The one, Flash Phelps. Maybe he's not what he once was, but he loves Laurel Park, and he's run some really good races here over the course of a handful of years. But this distance, too, I don't think this is a problem for him. 5 times out of 6 in the money. Twice a winner. I want to use him. The 3 in this spot, Irish Straight, I think is the most likely winner. He's getting class relief coming out of the Tampa Bay Stakes down at Tampa Bay Downs. It's a grade 3 race. You got Inspector Lindley in there. You've got Curbon. You got the Visadero. None of those types are going to be in a spot like this. This should be a good position for him. He's going to be a short price, but he's one that I think you absolutely need to use. The 4 in here flatlined is a price that I'm a little bit interested in. Claimed out of his most recent run from the Jonathan Thomas barn. Now goes out for Michael Pino. Pino's numbers off the claim. Decent enough. I think this is a situation where it's going to be interesting to see how this horse is ridden here by Daniel Centeno. I think he can be forwardly placed, but I don't know that you want to get involved in any sort of a duel early on, and there are some other speeds in this race. So, again, he's not a likely win contender, but at a big number with those other chalks that I'm going to be using, I want to use him underneath. Talk Show Man, again, another horse. He's very similar to Flash Phelps, in my opinion. Maybe he's not what he once was, but he can occasionally reach back into the Wayback Machine and fire one of his big shots. If you think he can get back to a race, but... I mean, it's a couple years back now, but he had a couple of those races in 2017 that I think are fast enough to get it done. His form last year, not spectacular, but decent enough. He's won, again, at a bigger price. I wouldn't be putting a ton of weight into him or a ton of an investment into him, but I'd be definitely using him underneath. The 8 Real Story. I like this horse. The problem is all 3 lifetime victories have come in gate-to-wire fashion, and I mentioned there is other speed in here, so if for some reason Robbie Alvarado can't make the front, I don't know if this horse is really going to go on with it, but another one that I do want to use, 5-1 on the morning line. And the 10, Just Howard. This is a horse, admittedly, never been a huge fan of. I think he's been a little bit of an underachiever over the past little while. Going back to the end of 2017, it looked like he was going to get ready to take a big step forward. He never did last year, but I do look at it and say he loves Laurel Park. He's 4 for 5. He's never been out of the money in 5 lifetime starts over the Laurel grass. And this is just a position where I think he has a little bit of tactical speed. Doesn't have to come from 100 out of it, but he can let those other speeds go off and do what they want to do on the front. Get first run on the deep closers. He's 9-2 on the line. Just Howard is another one that, again, I don't love him, but I can definitely see a scenario where he wins this race. So there's a quick look at this All Stakes Pick 4 sequence at Laurel Park on Federico Tessio Saturday, races 8 through 11. It's a 50-cent base bet. You can play it on DRF bets. I would strongly encourage, especially with an instance like this, to use DRF Ticketmaker. If you believe Always Mining is a cinch, then you know what? Probably going to need to spread either that or really, really hammer home your all-A opinions and play it for $5, $10 as opposed to playing it for 50 cents at a time. So it's a fun sequence. It's going to be a great day of racing down at Laurel on Saturday afternoon. Scheduled post time for leg A, the first leg of this All Stakes Pick 4 sequence. It's race number 8, the Dahlia, 4:42 Eastern. Good luck.